Dries, Philippe's loyal caretaker, is seen driving Philippe's exquisite Maserati Quattroporte at breakneck speed as they race through the city's winding roads in the film's opening scene, which begins in the vibrant city of Paris, which is illuminated by the sparkling night lights. As they raced through the streets, the two buddies noticed they were being pursued by the cops. Despite the risk, he appears unaffected, and instead of slowing down, he doubles his wager with Philippe, believing that with the assistance of an escort, they can evade the cops. As the cops close in on them, Drift thinks quickly on his feet and devises a smart deception strategy. He then informs the cops that Philippe needs immediate medical assistance and must be transferred to the emergency department. Philippe plays his part perfectly, pretending to suffer a stroke, and the naive police officers accompany them to the hospital. The police officers leave them at the hospital's entrance, assuming that they have done their job by assisting an emergency patient. Driss answers confidently when Philippe asks what their next step is. "Allow me to handle it now." They then rush back into the city, eager for their next adventure. The viewer is told the account of the two men's experience in a riveting flashback that takes up most of the remaining film. Philippe, a rich quadriplegic, and his faithful helper, Magali, are sent back in time to conduct interviews for a live-in caretaker post in Philippe's opulent Parisian residence. Drifts, the careless and casual man with no actual desire to get hired, is among the candidates. In reality, this is just there to get a signature verifying that he was interviewed and rejected, which he needs to keep getting welfare payments despite his lack of interest in the job. Dress openly flirts with Maga. Chris leaves Philippe's mansion and heads back to his cramped and crowded flat in a dreary suburb of Paris, which he shares with his large extended family, his playful demeanor evident in his casual approach to the interview, after being told that he needs to return the next day to receive his signed letter. As he walks inside the flat, he is met by his irritated aunt, who is furious over his lengthy absence and asks that he go immediately. The weight of his unknown future presses down on him as he ventures out into the darkly illuminated streets of Paris. With no employment and nowhere to go, he mulls over his next step. He had no idea that his meeting with Philippe and Magali will affect his life forever. Driss arrives to Philippe's opulent residence the next day to get his signed refuse. To his great surprise, he received a letter informing him that he had been chosen for a trial term as Philippe's live-in caregiver. Doris realizes the degree of Philippe's impairment as he spends more time with him and follows him around all day. As Philippe's caregiver, he discovers a different way of life from his own. Philippe's buddy uncovers her criminal record, which includes a 6-month prison sentence for robbery. Despite this discovery, Philippe stays unafraid and unprejudiced, explaining that he is unconcerned about previous clothing since he is the only one who treats him as an equal rather than with pity or sympathy. Philippe sees Dress's potential and assures him that if he continues to perform a good job, he will not be fired. This realization is a watershed moment for Drifts, who comes to discover that he is more capable than he previously believed. Philippe's acceptance of him, despite his tumultuous history, instills in him a renewed feeling of self-worth and determination. He begins to take his job seriously and devotes his heart to caring for Philippe, resulting in an odd but lovely connection with his boss. Driss and Philippe's bond becomes stronger over time. Dress takes his duty as Philippe's career extremely seriously, giving him the best care and attention, especially when he encounters Phantom. Philippe confides in Dress about the origin of his condition, explaining that he was quadriplegic due to a paragliding accident. Philippe also reveals the devastating news that his wife died without having any children. Drift urges Philippe to manage his personal matters as he gets increasingly immersed in his life. And he needed to be more aggressive with his adoptive daughter Elisa, who had been behaving entitled and bratty around the office. Philippe is also introduced to modern art, with exposure to conventional and contemporary pieces. Drift also becomes interested in opera and begins to paint. In celebration of Philippe's birthday, a private performance including classical music is planned in his living room. Dress is first hesitant to join, but Philippe persuades him to pay close attention to the music, and he ultimately warms up to the experience. In a spontaneous moment, he plays one of his favorite songs, Earth, Wind, and Fire's Boogie Wonderland, which causes everyone in the room to start dancing. Driss and Philippe's friendship strengthens as a result of these events, and they both mature in unexpected ways. Drift acquires a love of the arts and broadens his cultural horizons, while Philippe relearns to enjoy life and appreciate its basic joys. Their odd connection serves as a lesson that even the most improbable friendships may Unexpected connections can result in significant personal growth and happiness. Driss pushes Philippe to finally meet Eleanor, who lives in Dunkirk, after realizing that he has been having a strictly epistolary connection with her. Philippe, on the other hand, expresses concern that she may react poorly if she learns of his impairment. Despite this, Driss continues to encourage Philippe to at least call Eleanor. Philippe agrees to email Eleanor a snapshot of himself in a wheelchair after considerable deliberation. But he feels uncomfortable and eventually begs his assistant Yvonne to submit a picture of him before to his mishap. Instead, Eleanor and Philippe ultimately agree to a date. Unfortunately, Philippe is overcome with anxiety and chooses to leave with Yvonne just as Eleanor arrives. Philippe, feeling terrible, phones Driss and invites him to go paragliding. He took a weekend getaway on his own plane. During the journey, Philippe shocks Driss by handing him an envelope with 11,000 euros, the amount he was able to receive for Driss's artwork, which he sold to one of his friends by pretending it came from an artist on the rise. Adama Driss's younger cousin was present. There is an issue with the gang sought sanctuary at Philippe's estate. Driss told Philippe about his family and his terrible background as an orphan in Senegal who was adopted and brought to France by his childless aunt and uncle. However, after his aunt and uncle had their own children, his uncle died and his aunt had another kid. Philippe recognizes that Paul wants to support his family and, as a result, relieves him from his employment, noting that he may not want to push a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Driss reconnects with his buddies after returning to his suburb and successfully bails his cousin out of trouble. His professional expertise with Philippe also enables him to obtain employment with a transportation firm. Philippe, meantime, hires new caregivers to replace Driss, but none of them are available. He grows progressively despondent at this factory and neglects his personal care. Yvonne becomes anxious and contacts Driss, who rushes to assist and chooses to drive Philippe in the Maserati, bringing the scenario full circle to the film's opening scene. The police pursuit. Philippe and Driss arrive at a Kabul restaurant with a spectacular view after dodging the police and driving directly to the beach after shaving and dressing up. Ocean View Drift abruptly dismisses himself and bids Philippe a successful lunch meeting. Philippe is perplexed, but a few moments later, Eleonora appears. Philippe is moved and looks out the window to see Driss outside beaming at him. The movie concludes with Driss saying goodbye to Philippe and walking away. This beautiful movie ends here.